The idea of equity within today's society is that all people, no matter their background, status, or any other factor, deserves the right to receive what they need to be successful, whether it be through their education or the access to opportunity. Not to be confused with equality, which is the idea that everyone should be treated the same. Equity is giving opportunity to every individual, no matter their circumstances. Equity education is quoted as saying, while the world in which we live distributes talent equally, it does not equally distribute opportunity. Currently, in today's education, efforts are being made to fix issues within the system that have previously dwelled upon those marginalised. New ways of thinking about education are constantly being put forward, with culturally responsive teaching being one technique put in place to provide equity for students around the world. This technique focuses on those whose cultures and community values have affected their opportunity for education and instead gives them the education they need to take on more advanced academic tasks, changing their classrooms from that of basic intellect to one that pushes them to grow and become deep thinkers within society. One of the biggest issues in today's current education system with equity is financial access among families of all cultures and backgrounds. With money playing a large part in one's choice of school, those of a wealthy background are capable of sending their children to the best schools, giving them the opportunity to achieve the best grades. Whereas, on the other side of the financial scale, those with little money are forced to send their children to more affordable schools, where a student may not receive the same high level education and therefore is less likely to move on to further education. Another issue that branches off from financial differences is the changing of education into a more technology dominated area. And for students who aren't able to afford such luxuries like computers or tablets, their ability to keep up with students around them are strongly hindered and therefore are working twice as hard to complete the same assignment. This both damages their motivation and also creates a strong divide and equal chance to succeed. Ways to combat the financial issues within the educational system are always being put forward. Personally, with my secondary school, Galen Catholic College, students whose financial situations was an issue were given payment plans, and the school would work with the families to help pay for finances, school items, and excursions, among other things. In addition to this, the school also provided every student with a laptop at a strongly discounted rate to help convert them to the changing education system, teaching all students a now necessary skill of knowledge within the world of technology. Within the cultural plunge, I decided to interview a friend of mine, Simapreet Singh Chabra, who also lives with me on college at La Trobe. Simapreet, or Sima as we call him, is from India and moved to Australia this year to study his further education within our nation, believing that it offers him the best learning experience. Due to coming from a different country, our schooling life has some extreme differences, but at times, as I learned through our interview, demonstrates some similarities as well. Identities, belonging, and inclusion play an enormous role in one's schooling experiences, as each personality that steps into a classroom treats their education differently. From the interview, Sima demonstrated the idea that the religion his family follows, which is Sikhism, was something that he was taught very early on in life, and it became a part of his education. Identifying one's religion demonstrates an early educational opportunity given to each student, as both in school, where I was taught about Christianity, and at church, where I was once again taught through lessons, we were being provided with educational opportunities based off both our identity within society and based off religion, but also taught similarly to those that we belonged with, sharing knowledge only between those who share a common interest from a young age. These factors go much deeper than just religion, however, as each element of one's life directly impacts the way they experience school. In the dictionary, identity is the qualities, beliefs, personality, looks, and or expression that makes a person or group. These qualities have strong influences in one's experiences in schooling, with beliefs and personality playing the largest roles in the matter. Something as simple as one's confidence demonstrates how they may approach the education system. For example, someone who is shy may not be taking advantage of the resources in front of them and may be too scared to ask the teacher for help, whereas someone who is comfortable speaking in public may have no issues of asking for the teacher's assistance, therefore can pick up lessons much easier. Another large factor that influences one's experience of schooling is the need to belong within society. whether it be through friends, groups, or classmates. Being able to go to school without the fear of being isolated from society allows for students to get the motivation to get up each day. Within Simmer's friendship group, it consisted of numerous people from different religions who came together with shared common interests. This friendship group demonstrates how he found a place of belonging with those whose identity doesn't necessarily reflect his, however, it provides him with a reason to get out of his home and go to class, that being to see friends. These groups also provide an individual with a safety net and a way of getting enjoyment at times when school is becoming increasingly tough. The ability to step away from the classroom is extremely important in one's schooling experience, as it gives them a break from the stress of the schoolwork and allows them to maintain strong mental health, optimizing their work levels when stepping back into the classroom. Finally, inclusion is another strong influence in one's experience at school, with opportunity for inclusion being a large influencer on one's motivation within a classroom. Inclusion goes hand in hand with equity, as being included in the same things as their peers gives the students opportunities to succeed that each individual in the class deserves. Whilst not something that is necessarily controllable by a teacher, the ability to influence a class to negate exclusion allows for each individual to feel that they belong and helps develop an even level for all those within the classroom. Culture is one of the strongest factors in shaping someone's identity, with features of religion, beliefs, morals, humour, and traditions playing a large role in shaping someone into the person they are today. One thing that I have learned through the process of the cultural plunge is the varying levels that a culture can actually influence one's identity. With some people, a culture is only one part of many features that culminate to create an identity of an individual. However, with some others, culture is their entire identity, as they live to follow their culture's rules and abide to them in a law-like manner. I somewhat identified this within Simmer, as his behaviour is tailored to suit his Sikhism background, where he follows such rules as clothing, food consumed, and his behaviour at times. Leading on from this idea, one's identity strongly relates to the country they grew up in, with nationality demonstrating an identity for many. As, in David Williamson's article, he observes what it means to be Australian. This represents the idea that culture plays into the hands of identity, as what we grew up in, the people we grew up around, and the place that we resonate with all combine to reflect the identity that we are. Originally, this thought is something that I resonated with strongly, as I grew up believing that I was Australian and that the whole of the population shared common characteristics that could be thought of as typically Australian, as Williamson states in his article. Whilst I do believe that this is part of my identity, Williamson also demonstrates how being Aussie can have different meanings, with the 700,000 homeless people in the nation having a different representation of Australia. This enlightened me into seeing that identity can be separated from culture, as it is upon you to decide the type of identity you have and how you display your culture. This leads on to my next idea, in which an individual can adopt many different identities. This second idea is something that I am only just starting to understand, as with the change of times bringing forth many different issues among public identity, the concept is that identity is greater than one's own culture. The idea suggests that identity can change and adapt, and one's cultural background does not impact the identity that they wish to have at any given time. Within Gary Marks' article from week 6, the idea of social economic status playing a role in a student's academic success made me think about the narrow view of identity given to these students. Their position in society, their background, and their clothing do not play a role in the person that they choose to be, and whilst they are placed in a position of disadvantage, they have every right to achieve the highest marks within their class and be successful in life. Identity is something that one chooses for themselves, which can be further demonstrated through the recent changes to how people determine genders. The people who choose to change their gender demonstrate how identity is purely determined by one's personal choices, and culture has little impact upon this, representing a more free and simpler view of identity.